Welcome to the world of epic tales and unforgettable characters. In today's story, we journey to a magical academy where talent and power reign supreme, but our hero isn't like the others. Join me as we dive into a tale of courage, determination, and the fight to prove that even the seemingly ordinary can achieve the extraordinary. Grab your popcorn, settle in, and let the adventure begin. At a prestigious magical academy, where the ability to wield magic is everything, our protagonist, Will, feels out of place. Most of the students possess extraordinary magical talents, but Will is different. He lacks any aptitude for magic and often wonders if someone like him, seemingly talentless, can ever hope to succeed in such an environment. Despite his doubts, Will spends his days bravely venturing into dungeons, battling monsters to grow stronger, even if he can't rely on magic to aid him. One day, during a lesson at the academy, a distracted Will is suddenly called to the front of the class. The instructor asks him to conjure a flame using a catalyst. Trembling with fear, aware of his lack of magical ability, Will tries but ultimately fails to produce even a spark. The classroom erupts in laughter, and the instructor's disappointment is palpable. This is, after all, an elite institution, and it's embarrassing that a student can't even perform the most basic magic. The instructor bluntly points out that Will may excel in taking notes, but when it comes to actual magic, he is hopeless. As the class mocks Will, a student named Shaun, known for his prodigious talent, casually conjures an impressive flame from his seat. With a smirk, Shaun offers an insincere apology, claiming he was only trying to help. The instructor extinguishes the flame and uses the moment to reinforce the harsh truth of their world. At this academy, the supremacy of magic is absolute. Magical strength is everything, and mages are revered as heroes. A student who can't even perform a simple spell has no place here, where only the strongest are trained to become powerful sages. Just as the instructor's harsh words hang in the air, a girl named Colette steps forward to defend Will. Shaun, baffled, can't comprehend why an honor student like Colette would stand up for someone like Will, whom he sees as a nobody. But Colette boldly declares that Will is the hardest worker she knows, and that she won't allow anyone to insult her friend. The class is shocked by her fierce loyalty, but Shaun dismisses her defense, arguing that hard work alone isn't enough to make someone a mage. He coldly tells Will that he has no chance of becoming a mage and should drop out of the academy. Ignoring Shaun's scorn, Colette tries to comfort Will, acknowledging that their professor's harshness isn't entirely misplaced, but that Will shouldn't let it get to him. With a cheeky grin, Will turns the mood around by complimenting Colette's cuteness, teasing her with his smooth talk. Embarrassed, Colette flusters, reminding herself that as the heir to a noble family, she must remain composed, despite Will's playful banter. As they walk together, Colette notices Will has gone silent. He's lost in thought, admiring the day, and reminiscing about a promise he made long ago. Colette then shares with him the legend of the Magi of Vander, the most powerful wizards who once saved the world from darkness. They were the ones who cast a seal over the sky, bringing peace to the world, and their title has been passed down through generations. Will remembers how, as a child, a girl named Ilaria told him tales of what lies beyond the sky. She spoke of a beautiful sunset that turned everything a vibrant red. They dreamed of becoming Magi of Vander together, so they could one day see that sunset. Though Will now realizes it was a childish promise, he knows Ilaria was serious. She was the real deal. Lost in these memories, Will reflects on how far he's come and how much farther he still has to go. Despite his lack of magical talent, his determination to grow stronger remains unshaken. And with friends like Colette by his side, he holds on to the hope that perhaps, one day, he'll find a way to fulfill that promise. Ilaria was a prodigy, the kind of talent that only comes along once in a generation. She became the youngest ever to earn the title of Magi of Vander, a feat that placed her at the pinnacle of magical prowess. With her newfound status, she ascended to the top of the tower, leaving behind Will, the talentless boy who had once shared her dreams. Despite being left in her shadow, Will couldn't let go of the promise they made to each other. He resolved to work harder than ever, determined to stand beside her one day. But life at the academy wasn't easy for Will. One day, after returning from another perilous trip to the dungeon, Professor Will scolded him harshly. The worst part was that Will had ventured as far as the 7th floor of the dungeon, a dangerous level that made Will fear for his life. Will, ever the optimist, sheepishly apologized and inquired about his credits, which only served to irritate Will further. Still, Will had managed to eliminate an evil guard in the dungeon, so Will begrudgingly awarded him 2 credits. To Will's surprise, Will couldn't be happier, and the professor was shocked that Will hadn't given up on his dream of becoming a Magi of Vander. Will, seeing Will's determination, explained the difficulties that lay ahead. To even approach the tower, Will would need to advance to the Upper Institute. To do that, he must master 3 curricula: writing, spell work, and practice. Will needed a mountain of credits in all 3, but there was a glaring problem: he couldn't use magic, which meant he could never earn spell work credits. Will knew this all too well, which is why he focused so intently on earning practice credits in the dungeon. Unfortunately, Will had to remind him again that advancing on practice credits alone was impossible. Will felt a wave of dejection, but Will tried to lift his spirits. He suggested that Will forget about becoming a Magi of Vander and instead focus on the more immediate goal of actually graduating from the academy. Will's heart sank further when he realized he had failed to earn any credits in the most recent exam. This meant he needed to earn 4 credits by the end of the week, and with only 2 days left, he desperately searched his notes for a monster that could give him the credits he needed. Will, wanting to help but not wanting to get in trouble, accidentally mentioned a report about a certain monster on the 6th floor of the dungeon. The creature, known as the Baskerville, was exactly what Will needed. Overjoyed, Will thanked his helpful professor. However, unbeknownst to them both, Shaun overheard their conversation. A wicked grin spread across his face as he devised a plan to finally get rid of the talentless scrub who, in his eyes, was out of his league at the academy. Later, Will found himself on the 6th floor of the dungeon, eager to face the Baskerville. He had encountered the creature before and was confident he could avoid its deadly flame breath this time. His worried cat companion followed him, but Will reassured the feline that he'd be careful. Meanwhile, Shaun and his cronies were also searching for the monster, but not to help. They wanted to defeat the Baskerville before Will could, ensuring he would be expelled for failing to earn the necessary credits. As they descended deeper into the dungeon, Shaun's lackeys grew increasingly nervous. The 6th floor was no joke, but Shaun, brimming with arrogance, reminded them that he was one of the school's elites. The very sight of Will infuriated him, and he didn't believe someone as talentless as Will even deserved to speak about the Magi of Vander, let alone attend the academy. But then, things took a horrifying turn. A monstrous figure appeared out of the shadows and eviscerated one of Shaun's men with terrifying ease. The creature's bloodied fists dripped with the lifeblood of its victim, and Shaun's friends screamed in horror. Will, hearing the scream, rushed forward, his heart pounding with fear and urgency. He arrived just in time to see Shaun locked in a desperate battle with a monster that Will recognized immediately, an evil sentinel. Will had never seen one in person before, and the sight sent chills down his spine. This beast was on a whole other level, far more dangerous than the Baskerville, and it was worth 10 credits. The terrified Shaun begged the monster to stay away as he launched spell after spell, but his magic had no effect. The sentinel continued its relentless advance, and Shaun, panic-stricken, kept firing in desperation. Will, watching from a distance, realized that Shaun didn't stand a chance against this creature. For a moment, Will considered whether he even had an obligation to save Shaun. After all, Shaun had done nothing but torment him, making his life at the academy miserable. But as the sentinel closed in on the terrified boy, something inside Will stirred. Despite everything, he couldn't just stand by and watch someone die. He had made a promise once, and no matter how talentless he might be, he was determined to keep fighting. As Will stands frozen, his mind races with memories of how Shaun had treated him, the countless times he had mocked and belittled him. Part of Will begins to think that leaving Shaun to his fate would be justified, a fitting end for someone so cruel. But just as these dark thoughts take hold, a memory of Ilaria surfaces, her voice, her unwavering belief in him. She once told him that he was kinder and braver than anyone she had ever known. It was Ilaria who had given him his glasses, a symbol of the trust and faith she had in him. Back in the present, Will mutters to himself that Ilaria was wrong, he isn't kind or brave. He's just desperate to do whatever it takes to stand beside her again. Steeling himself, Will adjusts his battle-worn glasses and dashes forward with newfound resolve. As he leaps into the fray, he intercepts the Sentinel's immense attack and declares that, if nothing else, he will become a lone sword warrior in a world of mages. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Professor Edward bursts into Will's office, his face etched with urgency. He informs Will that Shaun and his lackeys have ventured into the dungeon without permission. Will is incredulous, but Edward insists they're in grave danger and urges him to send his familiar to find them. When Will learns they're on the 6th floor, he surprises Edward by saying there's no need to worry. Edward, baffled, reminds him just how dangerous the 6th floor is, but Will remains calm. He explains that everything is fine because Will is on that floor. In the dungeon, Will showcases his extraordinary combat skills. He fights the Sentinel with a combination of speed, strength, and precision that leaves Shaun and his cronies in stunned silence. With a swift move, Will slices off one of the Sentinel's massive fingers, infuriating the beast. The Sentinel retaliates, but Will is too fast, darting around the cavern, deflecting debris, and eventually maneuvering onto the monster's back. Shaun watches in disbelief, unable to reconcile the formidable warrior before him with the quiet, unassuming student he knew from school. The professors, observing the battle through a crystal ball, are equally astounded. Edward can't believe his eyes as Will performs feats of strength and agility that seem impossible for someone without magic. Will then reveals the truth about Will. He is a true outlier, possessing superhuman strength that rivals that of any mage, and a body as resilient as a dwarf's. But that's not all. Will also has an uncanny ability to observe and understand his enemies' strategies after witnessing them just once. Will demonstrates this ability as he dodges another of the Sentinel's attacks and uses the opening to slice off the beast's arm. Will concedes that while Will cannot use magic, he is the one and only warrior in a world dominated by magic users. Now armed with the Sentinel's own giant sword, Will readies himself for the final attack. The monstrous beast unleashes a devastating beam of energy, but Will, undeterred, counters with a powerful slash that cuts through the beam with ease. The cave is rocked by the force of the attack, and the Sentinel is utterly defeated. Will turns his attention to Shaun, showing genuine concern for the boy who had tormented him for so long. But Shaun, seething with rage, bites down so hard in frustration that he draws blood. The thought of someone without magic surpassing him is unbearable. Edward, too, is furious, refusing to accept that Will, a student who can't even use basic magic, has proven to be more powerful than those who can. A while later, Will returns to the academy, where Professor Will is waiting for him. Though still upset about the risks Will took, Will has to admit that Will accomplished something incredible. He awards Will the 10 credits he earned for defeating the Sentinel. Despite the turmoil of the day, Will can't help but smile. He's one step closer to standing beside Ilaria, and nothing, not even the disdain of his peers, can stop him now. And that's where we'll leave our hero for now, standing at the crossroads of destiny. But this is just the beginning of Will's journey in a world where magic rules and the odds are stacked against him. Will he rise to the challenge and fulfill the promise he made, or will the weight of the world crush his spirit? Stay tuned for part 2, where the stakes get even higher and the adventure continues. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next chapter.